Episode 71 of the Boomtank Business Show. Hey everyone, check out boomtank.com for my trademark signature programs, life redesign with business in mind for those contemplating entering business, and winning in business for business owners and entrepreneurs struggling to shift gears, move their needle, and reach that next exciting level with visibility and correctly priced business offerings. Today's guest is from LA. He is John Livesay, an in-demand media personality. John has appeared on CBS, ABC, Fox, and has been featured by Entrepreneur and Inc. As the nationally recognized pitch whisperer, he helps startups successfully pitch to angel investors and others to get successfully funded. He also expertly speaks to how to ask for what you want and get a yes. Hear how he became recipient of Salesperson of the Year in Media Sales for Condé Nast, his brief time with the Daily Beast, his leap into entrepreneurship as the pitch whisperer, and more about his role as a recognized keynote speaker for the likes of Coca Cola and others. This is an incredible look into another level of business and entrepreneurship. Let's get started. 2018, copyright Boomtank Media, LLC, fully enforced.
Welcome to the Boomtank Business Show for sharp female entrepreneurs and businesswomen who are ready to shine. A show about more freedom, more income, less worries, and cutting-edge information for you to create and grow your business. From branding to social media, marketing to the latest technologies, we've got you covered. Now, here's your host, Carolyn Cole.
Today's guest is from LA. He is John Livesay, known as the Pitch Whisperer. He is an in-demand media personality. He helps salespeople become magnetic storytellers with the ability to make irresistible offers to their ideal clients. As a keynote speaker, John has captivated audiences in settings ranging from Gensler's Top Management Retreat to Coca Cola's CMO Summit. He is the author of The Successful Pitch, Conversations Ongoing from Invisible to Investable, and the host of the Successful Pitch podcast, heard in over 60 countries, featuring expert investor guests from around the globe. John has appeared on CBS, Fox, and ABC as the expert on how to ask for what you want and get a yes. Audiences love him. He has also been featured by Entrepreneur and Inc. During a 20-year career in media sales with Condé Nast, John worked across all 22 brands in their corporate division and was the recipient of Salesperson of the Year honors. Welcome to the show, John. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Carolyn. I love your enthusiasm and passion, and thanks for the intros. Hopefully we didn't bore anybody too much.
We did an email exchange, and I looked at your email signature, and you have these words: "Those who tell the stories rule the world." Plato. How did you arrive at that for a signature? I love that.
Thank you. Well, storytelling's in our DNA. I mean, we used to sit around the globe campfires and tell stories, and now we sit around, PowerPoint glows and tell stories. So the concept that my philosophy is that whoever tells the best story gets the sale, and the fact that Plato was talking about storytellers ruling the world, because in the business world, people want to have outcomes, right? No one's interested in becoming a storyteller unless it's going to help them get more sales. So the fact that that is resonating all the way back to the days of Plato, I thought really resonated with who I am and what I'm about.
Perfect time to talk about this, John. Who are you and what is your backstory?
Sure. Well, my passion years and years ago started in advertising from watching a TV show called Bewitched. And there was a character on there who was married to this gorgeous witch, and he was in advertising. And I thought, that seems like a really cool job. And so I majored in advertising at the University of Illinois. And I always wanted to be the guy that would go out and pitch the agency's creative abilities to create commercials for clients. So that's started my passion for communication and persuasiveness and messaging, and nothing is better than a story, turned into a commercial. And I worked for an ad agency here in Los Angeles that was taking movies coming out on home video and turning those into commercials. And so you could reposition a movie that maybe didn't do so well theatrically, but would do well in the home video market. And then from there, I went into selling advertising for Condé Nast. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of different brands, everything from W to Vanity Fair to Wired to GQ to Vogue. And each of those brands has their own editor, which has their own voice and has their own story that attracts a different type of reader. That then my job was to convince advertisers why they should advertise in this particular magazine versus another one based on what the environment was.
We have allure, Bon Appetit, Golf World, Golf Digest, Vanity Fair, New Yorker, GQ, GQ Style. Those are just a few of the brands. Did you work with all of those brands when you were with Condé Nast?
I first started out working for W Magazine. And then after I won Salesperson of the Year, and we can talk about how that happened, they promoted me to be in charge of the corporate division. So I would manage all of those brands and take that combined reach, if you will, across print and digital and video, and convince big companies like Guess Jeans and Lexus to run the majority of their spend with those brands versus the brands of competitors that Time or Hearst have.
How did you win Top Salesperson?
Well, the story starts after being there for 15 years. In 2008, the economy tanked, and luxury advertising in particular really took a hit, and that's what I was selling. And so W laid off all of the outside sales reps, including 30% of the people in the New York office, and they were going to have other magazine reps sell that magazine. So it was quite a disruptive experience. You know, you think, oh, well, I'm John Livesay from Condé Nast and W Magazine over and over again over the years and reservations at restaurants, et cetera. And then suddenly you realize, oh, that's not, I'm just me now. And it was like a needle, Carolyn, being, and it was challenging not to take it personally, even though I knew it was something that McKinsey had come in and told Condé Nast to do. So I had to reinvent myself. And so everything was going from print to digital, and I had to figure out how to learn how to sell digital, which is a completely different language. In fact, I compare it to silent movie stars. Some of them made it to talkies and some of it didn't. And I said, okay, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to learn this new language, and just like a skill that an actor had to do in the silent movie era. I was able to get a job at the Daily Beast, which was Barry Diller's website that Tina Brown from Vanity Fair and The New Yorker was editing. So I launched that for them. And after a couple of years of doing that, Condé Nast called me back and said, we have a new editor, and we're looking for someone who can sell print and digital. And since you've been able to do that at the Daily Beast, we were wondering if you would consider coming back, because we've lost some of the big accounts that you had with these reps that have come and go since we've had to replace you. And I said I would come back. I like what the new editor's doing, and I think I can bring Guess and Lexus back into Condé Nast. So Guess Jeans was mad that they had changed editors and pulled their ads. So first I had to create a way to get the conversation going between the CEO of Guess and the editor-in-chief at W to repair that relationship. And once that was repaired, because I set up a meeting where they weren't going to talk about advertising at all, but more about models and photographers, things that Paul Marciano, who was the creative director and CEO, cared about, that the editor knew about, that there was a value exchange without asking for anything. And I think that's a really big takeaway, is you have to figure out something that gives benefit to the person, not what you want out of it. And then after they started to advertise a little bit more with us, the big idea was that Guess's 30th anniversary happened to coincide with W Magazine's 40th anniversary. And I said, what if, which is a great way, Carolyn, if you're proposing an idea for someone, to start off a sentence with what if. It taps into people's imagination. So what if we did a joint venture with our anniversaries and collaborated for publicity? Drew Barrymore was on the cover of W over the last 40 years, and she was also a guest model. And we could show those photos next to each other, along with other models and things that we have in common over the years, and invite celebrities to this event that would generate a lot of publicity. And guests loved the idea. They ran a supplement which had 30 pages. One page was each model for the 30 years, polybag shrink wrapped to the W anniversary issue. And I got exclusive advertising, and we all had a successful press out of it. And I ended up winning Salesperson of the Year, not just for the magazine, but for the whole company based on that idea and that execution.
It's late, but congratulations. That is so impressive how that all worked and how you pulled all of that into something so cohesive. And not only that, but award-winning. Well done.
Well, it's interesting because the big life lesson for me is, I was laid off in 2008, rehired back 2 years later, and then the following year, won Salesperson of the Year. And as I'm holding that award in my hand, Carolyn, I thought to myself, wow, I'm the same person, whether I just was somebody who was laid off or I'm winning this award. And it was my first big aha moment of who I am really is not dependent on what's happening from the outside. And I think one of the keys to my success was when they rehired me, I decided I'm not going to come back with one day of fear. Because throughout those 15 years, you're worried about if I don't hit my numbers, am I going to get laid off? Is the magazine going to go under if the economy doesn't get better? On and on and on. There's 100 things to worry about and be afraid of. And I thought, this time I'm coming back with no fear because I've already survived being laid off, the worst case scenario, right? So that is the big lesson, that if we can let go of fear, whether we're an entrepreneur or working for somebody else, the best ideas come to you from that space. You know, I used to be a competitive swimmer, and one of the things I learned from being a competitive swimmer was you got to depend on yourself, right? You got to dig deep to keep working out when you're tired. You have to dig deep to keep going and not give up and not let the previous experience, if you didn't do so well in a race before, or let somebody else psych you out. You know, it's interesting. I was able to get Speedo to advertise in W Magazine, which allowed me to therefore meet Michael Phelps. So you can imagine, as a former competitive swimmer or lifeguard, what a thrill it was to meet him. And I asked him, you know, everyone says you're so successful because you're built a certain way, you've got huge lungs and blah, blah, blah. And I said, but I'm wondering if there's something else. And he said, oh, yeah, my coach asked me years ago, are you willing to work out on Sundays? Because everybody else takes those off. And he said, yeah, I will. And he said, great, that gives us 52 more workouts. And I thought, oh, there it is. What are you willing to do that your competition's not willing to do? And so that was big life lessons for me from swimming and working and meeting people like Michael Phelps that I then take into my own life all the time.
That's a keeper. Well done with that one, too. How did you become the pitch whisperer? What transpired?
Well, when I was in the corporate division at Condé Nast, they'd asked me to find startups that they could either use to bring new products to the marketplace or possibly buy. And I started seeing that the tech startups in particular really didn't know how to pitch to get a new customer, let alone how to get funding. That's what gave me the idea that there's a big problem to solve. Only 1% of pitches get funded. They're in the wrong room and they have a bad pitch. They don't know how to tell a story. So I thought, I'm going to go out and help people with their pitch. So that was my decision 3 years ago now. And people started saying to me, oh, you know, can you make an introduction to an investor once I have this great pitch for funding? And I said, well, I don't know how to do that. And someone said, well, why don't you start a podcast and interview investors and then you could have your whole network? And I said, well, why don't I go to the moon? I don't know how to do that. So for me, I had to overcome some fear and I had to put faces on it, Carolyn, in order for it to become real. So the first fear was the fear of rejection. What if I ask somebody to be on and they're like, well, could I hear another episode? Right? Be the first. And luckily for me, full circle, Judy Robinette was my second guest. And then she started introducing me to her network of investors. And then the podcast took off from there. But then the other fear was the fear of failure. What if I have a podcast and nobody listens to it and I've spent all this time and money? And Jay Sammet, who wrote Disrupt You, said, you know what? Keep going until you get a zombie idea so great it won't die. Which I just loved. And then the big one was the fear of the unknown. I didn't know how to produce it, edit it, promote it, and what mic to buy. But I found somebody that's their whole business is done for your podcasting. So my suggestion to the listeners, if you have a fear of the unknown, is don't go it alone and collaborate and hire other people who have the skills that you don't to make that work. So that's all that led to me being introduced to a writer at Inc. magazine. And she was interviewing me for an article on how startups need to pitch in order to tell a story to get funded. And I was explaining to her what I do. And she's like, oh my God, you're a pitch whisperer. And I said, oh, I love that. And then that became, that's one of the quotes on the cover of my book.
What do you do now as a pitch whisperer?
I still work with a select group of startups on their pitch to get funding, but the majority of my focus is being a keynote speaker to companies like Coca Cola or Anthem Insurance or Gensler, which is the world's largest architecture design firm. Ironically, Gensler designed Condé Nast Architectural Digest offices, so you can imagine how picky Architectural Digest is on who designs their offices. And all those companies have the same challenges that startups have, is startups are pitching to get a customer or starting to pitch to get funded, but big companies have a sales team that need to go out and tell their story of why their price is what it is, and how to pull people in when they all, like Gensler, for example, has to go against other design firms. And they have pitch meetings, presentations, sales calls, whatever you want to call it. And they had me come and speak on getting to yes and how to become a storyteller. And now I help them on their pitches. So it's usually I give a keynote to a company and then they want me to be their secret weapon and help them on future pitches.
Let's break apart pieces that you share either as a keynote or when you're working with these startups that want to pitch to the angels.
Sure. There's three unspoken questions we have when they hear you pitch, right? And if you don't answer those questions when you're pitching, you're not going to get a yes. The first one is people are literally looking at you saying, do I trust you? It's a gut thing. In fact, that's where the handshake came about, Carolyn, is to show you didn't have a weapon in your hand. So I work with people on making sure that they're making good eye contact and what you're saying is credible, that there's a lot of trust going on. And that's where the introductions come and the social proof. And then it moves from the gut to the heart, which is, do I like you? And Tim Sanders wrote a great book called The Likability Factor. And the more you show empathy for somebody, the more they like you. And so I'm always working with people to put on your empathy hat. What does your investor care about, or what does your potential client care about? It's not about you. When I was working with a client on their opening line when they were getting in front of a potential customer, I said, what are you going to say? You have 45 minutes. There's 7 of you that all have to talk. There's a competitor before and after you. What are you going to open with? And they said, thanks for this opportunity. I'm excited to be here. I said, oh my God, that's a horrible opening. First of all, nobody cares that you're excited to be here. And that's something that's not memorable, and anybody could say it. So we crafted a completely different opening that sounded something like, your CEO has tasked you with getting this airport ranked from number 24 to number 1 in 5 years. And we're the right people with the right team to do it because we've done it for other airports in other countries.
Beautiful. How was that received?
They won the business, yes. And then so we go from the gut to the heart to the head. And that's where people are thinking to themselves, will this work for me? Is what you're saying, it sounds great, but will it work for me? Can I do what you're saying, right? And that's where the stories really come to life. If you tell a story of someone else you've helped who was just like that person, and they can see themselves in the story and want to go on that same journey, then you get a yes.
I say that celebrity, and I've told this to my live streaming audience, celebrity gets you in the door, but memorable keeps you there. And that's exactly what you just knocked out of the park. Perfect. Let's talk about the 3 secrets to increasing self-confidence. And I've told you before, and we've discussed this earlier, that my audience is typically very much personally developed. But I want to still go through that with you because I want to hear how you mastered these things. That's the real story. And then, yes, and then you spoke to this point, which is getting off the self-esteem roller coaster. And we also discussed prior to the interview beginning that I don't know that you ever really in life come completely off the roller coaster. I mean, it is life, but you can certainly get back on the tracks faster, if you have the resilience. And I think the self-confidence gives you that. So please walk us through what you believe are the 3 secrets to increasing self-confidence, including self-confidence for yourself when you were going through those rocky times.
Right. Well, the first step of confidence is from my Arthur Ashe quote I love so much, which is the key to success is confidence, and the key to confidence is preparation. So many times, whether it's a company going in for a big presentation or somebody pitching for their startup to get funded, people don't believe in the value of practicing and preparation. And I said, these are your Super Bowl moments. You have to do as much preparation as an actor does before the movie starts or an athlete does before the Olympics. So that's the first thing, is really the more prepared you are, the more your confidence goes up. And second is what I was describing earlier, that what I did with Martin is really stacking those moments of certainty and then connecting it to a feeling. I felt happy, I felt proud, I felt exhilarated, because if you don't stack your own moments of certainty and the feelings that go with it before you go into pitch, then the negative self-talk kicks in, right? Oh, I really need this job, or they're never going to hire me, or whatever it is. So you replace that with your moments of certainty. And then the third one is the superhero pose. There's a great TED talk about it and how it, holding a pose like you're a superhero for 2 minutes causes your testosterone to go up, even if you're a woman, and your stress level to go down. Doctors do it before surgeries. And now I add the element of, while you're holding that for 2 minutes, that's when you remember you're stacking your moments of certainty. So that makes those 2 minutes go by fast. So you're really getting it firing in all cylinders. And I still do that before I give a keynote talk. And, before I was interviewing to go to the Daily Beast, I do all of those techniques before I get in front of an audience to give a keynote.
Let's go through, if we can please, the self-esteem roller coaster. What do you have to say about that?
Well, that's what motivated me to write my book, because I wanted to get people off of that self-esteem roller coaster of only feeling good about yourself if your numbers are up and bad about yourself if your numbers are down. And so often, even if you are a publicly held company, you can be looking at your stock price every minute on the day going, oh, do I feel good or bad? Good or bad? And it'll drive you crazy. And I think you have to realize, your bigger why of what you're doing is more than just making money. And again, not letting whatever happens to you outside of yourself completely derail you where you can't get back on track. And it's really realizing that who you are is in fact consistent and bigger than whatever's happening to you at any one given moment.
Gary Vaynerchuk talks about empathy and 10xing empathy before you get to that 11th X, which is asking someone to buy something from you. In your opinion, what do you think is causing this empathy talk in the larger marketplace?
I think the old way of selling is no longer working, right? You can't just push and manipulate people. People are too sophisticated and skeptical now. And so that's why storytelling and even advertising, that the brands are becoming integrated into the story. And again, that whoever can describe the problem the best, people then assume you have the solution. So if you can speak in terms of, if this sounds like you, are you struggling with X, Y, and Z? If that's true, then I have the solution. And here's the story of somebody I helped who was just like you. So I think that's really why people are resonating with empathy so much is, oh, you're saying something that makes me sit up and take notice because it's relevant to me.
What excites you right now with what you're doing with your business in your life?
I think the thing that excites me the most is that there's such a need for having a keynote speaker come in and give people these storytelling skills. Because once you give people storytelling skills, it allows them to stop pushing and start being magnetic and pulling people in. And it's just a big aha of, oh my God, we now know a whole different skill set on how to create relationships and stand out from their competition.
And you're giving keynotes for those larger companies like Coca Cola, correct?
Yes, I just was at their CMO summit where they had 200 of their CMOs from all their restaurants and movie theaters that sell Coca Cola looking to try and figure out how do they embrace all this new technology from virtual reality to artificial intelligence into their marketing plans and incorporate that into the story that their brand is telling.
That's just fantastic. How can people find you and how can you help?
Sure. Well, the easiest thing is if you can't remember my name, johnlivesay.com, or you can't remember the successful pitch, podcast, or book title, you might remember The Pitch Whisperer. So you can Google The Pitch Whisperer and I'll pop up all over the place. And I'm on Twitter at John_Livesay. And if anybody is looking for someone to help them with a great pitch, either it's an elevator pitch you need or a pitch to get your startup funded or a keynote speaker to come in and help your team become magnetic and irresistible, then I'm the guy.
You have been magnetic and irresistible for this interview. Thank you so much, John, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. It was fun.
You can find links to John's podcast and book in the show notes for this episode on boomtank.com. Let's connect on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm Carolyn Cole live on both platforms. And thank you for tuning in to the Boom Tank Business Show. I so appreciate you listening, and you know I do. If you like the show, please leave a 5-star rating and some nice comments on iTunes or subscribe on the free Stitcher podcast listening app for Android users or Google Play. And tell a friend. Join Boomtank's email list at boomtank.com and download my free ebook, The Best Online Tools to Grow Your Business Now, containing over 75 plus hot links to grow your business. Be sure to check out my coaching and consulting tab on boomtank.com for my coaching and consulting services and the speaking tab to book me as your next professional speaker or featured guest. And like Boomtank's business page at facebook.com/The Boomtank to join and watch my live streams. Until next time, free your mind, unleash your spirit, build your life, create your business. It really is your show. See you right here on the next episode.
Thank you for tuning in to the Daily Boom Tank Business Show. Go to boomtank.com and get our exclusive tips and ideas to help you achieve success. It is time for you to launch your dream business and life now.